Welcome back to episode 60 of the Second Look Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Arnberg, and we actually have a full episode for you today. I'm joined along with Cristian Gianniti, Alex Mandarino, and Brandon Brown. This is like a rare occasion for us. Usually one of us is busy, but we got all four of us back together for the first time in a long time, and it feels absolutely amazing. But I think we're going to start the show with Cristian actually interviewing me and Alex, if I'm not mistaken. So Cristian, I'll send it over to you.
Interviews a bit much, but like I just wanted to know. We were talking before we got rolling here. Like, you guys came back for some big trips. Mando a little earlier than Judd. I gave an apology to Mando. Didn't know where his whereabouts were last show. But guys, I just want to know, from a sporting context, how did you follow along to, the Jays, Leafs, Raptors, Habs, and in Judd's case? Like, how was that? Like, trying to, get your news, watch along in playoff games and whatever, and also just any sporting stories that you have local to where you guys were?
I'll start it off. For me, at least, I would say last week was definitely a new challenging experience. Considering like a sports fanatic like myself, in the sense of a typical person that probably goes over doesn't experience this as much as what probably I did, and this is just because I love sports and I'm in this business. So it was really hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the only game that I stayed up for
Just for
was
context,
Game 7.
you were just in the UK, right?
Yeah, 5 hours
Okay.
ahead. So usually start time here is around 7 o'clock, I would say, for an early game, right? So start time over there is midnight. And I honestly did not stay up, considering it was a very busy week. We had a lot of stuff planned, so I didn't stay up on the only game I stayed up for was Game 7. And even then, I made it to the end of the second period, and then I lost Wi-Fi because, you're not in a hotel, you're in an Airbnb, and sometimes stuff just doesn't work out properly. So then I had to switch to I couldn't watch the stream. First off, you can't watch Sportsnet Plus outside of Canada. Did not know that. So I had to watch it on my streaming thing that I have. And then when that booted me out, I had to switch to just like, did you guys ever do this as like a kid? Like, you're scrolling or you're in the car and like you're just refreshing on a page. Like on the score page,
Yes,
at like where it's like doing the time. Like, I kept on doing that until I fell asleep in the third period of Game 7, and I woke up and I was just like praying, like, please, just when I refresh this phone, please have one more score for the Montreal Canadiens. And I was like, my heart was about to sink if I saw Tampa Bay Lightning won. Anyway, ended up being the Montreal one. But for the rest of it, it was really awkward because there was one morning I woke up at 7 o'clock London time, and 30 minutes before that, the Vegas-Utah game had just ended. And I was like, what in the world is this?
That's weird.
Like, it was so weird waking up and 30 minutes ago, Vegas-Utah had ended. And it was like not, I couldn't even like think about it, like wrap my head around it. It was like that during the whole trip. Like, it was constantly like that. And I met a couple UK people over there, and the one literally, he had his phone out. It was middle of the afternoon, and he's watching the game for, like, his favorite team is the Detroit Pistons, and he's watching the Detroit Pistons game, and it's like, why are you watching that right now? He's like, well, because I can't watch it in the middle of the night over here. And then I'm like, oh, and he goes, like, I don't look at the scores. I don't go on any social media. I block everything out. I wait until I can actually watch the game the next day, because it also, I could be mistaking this, but I'm pretty sure for the UK, it doesn't come out actually live. It comes out after the fact. So it's a little bit different than in Canada for sure. And it's something that I wasn't used to. Now, in terms of like their sports over there, absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people are into soccer. A lot of people are big time soccer fans, and there was a massive game for Tottenham over there when I was there, and we were in a pub watching it, and um, we were everyone in the pub was disappointed. Let's just put it that way, that Tottenham had survived and had won the game because everyone wants to see Tottenham get relegated just because of how massive a team that is. To see the possibility of getting relegated to the championship would just be unimaginable, and they would lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And fans are into that, of course. So yeah, Premier League was just sick over there. I didn't get to see any games in person though, so I wish I would have been able to do that. But other than that, just the vibe around there. But yeah, watching North American sports, you have to be committed if you are living in Europe. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, and you have to have time. Like, you have to have the ability
Yeah.
to just not sleep, basically, or not have a job.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically it. I had
Yeah.
a similar experience because I was in the UK, so 5 hours, and then Amsterdam in the Netherlands, 3 days late for 3 days, and it's 6 hours. So it's like the extra hour ahead of I guess, Eastern time or where we're all living. So for me, it was weird opening the score and even checking like your favorites, Toronto Blue Jays, and they would have 2 games on the Saturday. And I'm like, when did they have so many double headers? But no, it's just they
Yeah.
have a game at midnight and then they have a game at 9 p.m. on the Saturday, just based on
Yeah.
how the timing was
Yep.
like Friday night at 7 and, yeah, 1 or 3 p.m. on Saturday. So that was weird. I didn't have a dog in the fight in the playoffs, i.e., the Leafs weren't involved. Obviously, the Sharks, being a secondary fan, they were nowhere really close near the end. But so I didn't really have any intention of watching, but I would follow along on the score near the end of the day. And it was funny because on my train from the UK to Amsterdam, we had to get to the train station at like 6:37 in the morning. So as I'm waiting for my train at 7 a.m., that same overtime, one of the overtime games between Vegas and Utah was going on. I'm like, what the hell's going on? This is like the weirdest thing ever. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, in terms of local sports, though, I would just say soccer, like you said, Jut. Like even like some of the secondary leagues you would watch, you'd walk by certain neighborhoods just out like in the outskirts of London, and there'd be pubs full of jerseys I'd never
Yeah.
seen, right? And these guys are dialed in the middle of the day. So I didn't watch much. And the Netherlands, it was the same. Amsterdam specific, not very sporty type culture there, but you'd see some jerseys here and there, and I'm sure that's kind of where their allegiances lay. But for me, it was more
Mhm.
catching up with the news of what was going on in the world at that night, and a lot went on in the NHL especially, but was back for the John Chayka hiring and all that in Leafland.
Nice. Any
Yeah.
Toronto sports paraphernalia that you guys spotted, like out in the wild, like a Jays hat or anything like that?
Yeah,
Did see a
yeah,
Jays hat?
saw Jays
Yeah,
for sure. Jays
Jays.
Jays probably more than
Yeah.
any other. I saw, like, a couple of hockey. I actually saw a Montreal Canadiens jersey when I was there,
Nice.
Cool.
um, which was surprising. I saw a couple other, like, a Boston Bruins hat I saw. Do I know if they're from there? No. No
Yeah.
idea. Maybe they're just tourists as well. I saw a bunch of different, like,
Could have just been like people on your flight, right? That's what I always think.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is
yeah,
just dude who
exactly.
is 4 rows behind me, right? But I mean,
There's
Montreal,
also
Boston, probably not.
there's also, like, a lot of Americans that go there, I felt like. So, like,
Sure.
you would see a bunch of, like, college, like, memorabilia that was there. That was the biggest thing,
Yeah.
was college memorabilia, like Ohio State, Alabama, like, that kinda stuff. So, that
Right.
was the biggest stuff.
I
But
noticed,
anyway,
yeah, I just noticed like a lot of Yankees hats. Yeah, a lot of Yankees
yeah.
hats. I'm sure that's just like,
Yeah.
that's the big team. And so even people in the UK, I saw a couple of Jays hats, but they were mainly in like the touristy areas. So you assume they're from Canada. And the fact that the Jays is the only MLB team nationwide, who knows where these people are from? I didn't really get a chance to talk to people, but it was cool to
Yeah.
see the support. So you know what? That was
Yeah,
fun for the time being.
yeah.
I love that, fellas. I think it just goes to show you, like, I all the time, like, you get asked hypothetically, like, where would you live if it wasn't Toronto? And I honestly tell myself a lot of time, like, I don't think I could do it for this very
Yeah.
reason. Like, if I'm not in the Eastern time zone or close to it, that's a deal breaker, man. I need to be able to keep up to date and actually consume the sports
Oh,
live. Like,
man.
it's
Yeah.
important.
This
At least you'd get your
th
Formula 1 at prime time.
Yeah,
Oh, listen,
that is
honestly, that's
true.
part of that's like I guess NFL. Like I feel like NFL you could probably do worldwide. Like you'd make time for your one team. And so Formula 1, I've done my fair share of 2 a.m.s. You do your 7 a.m.s. I like the variety there, but in an 82 game schedule, God forbid you're a baseball fan not in North America. Good luck to you. Good luck.
Exactly.
That's cool,
Japan
fellas. That's cool.
watching Shohei Ohtani, like that is commitment.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
That is commitment.
Yes, absolutely.
Now the best time zone is
and
probably
God knows they do.
the West.
You think?
To wake up in BC and have football start at 9 a.m. on Sunday and then it to be done by like 8 p.m. Oh, that's beautiful. That's just
I would say
ideal.
though I think the problem is like I'm just looking at it from if we're following, let's say, the Leafs or the Raptors, the games are at 4 p.m., which sounds decent. But let's say you work a 9 to 5, you're already missing the first period. You have to get home, and by the time you get home from traffic, game's done. So I feel like that might be tough, but I guess you could all around West might be a decent time zone. I guess you could look at it that way.
Maybe Mountain
could
or
probably
Central
make it
time.
work.
Yeah, that
is
could
more
be okay.
Central time, you're right. Brando's
Central
right.
might be nice.
Central
might be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right
good
in the
call,
middle.
Brando.
Central is a nice time zone. But yeah, I mean, I think I definitely was an eye opener to like how people experience sports in Europe, like North American sports. That is,
Definitely.
because it's definitely challenging. It's definitely a commitment, and it's definitely more of like waking up the next morning and seeing what your team did instead of like being able to watch those games. So
yeah,
that's what it comes down to. Anyway, now that we got that out of the way, let's jump into actual exciting news. That is the Toronto Maple Leafs and Edmonton Oilers, but we'll focus on the Toronto Maple Leafs first. Both have relieved their head coach of their duties in Craig Berube and Kris Knoblauch. Craig Berube, after 2 seasons, 1 year making the playoffs and going into the second round, all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup semifinals against the Florida Panthers, where arguably they had the worst performance ever on home ice, followed up by a year that was miserable and ended up actually working out in their favor, getting the number 1 overall pick. And then the Edmonton Oilers, Kris Knoblauch goes to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, takes over the team mid-season after the team had lost, I think it was like close to like 16 games in a row or something like that. Or they were just started terrible and then they went on a 16 game winning streak or something like that. And then back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, like I said, and then loses in the first round this year, and he is relieved of his duties. We'll get into that a little bit later. But first, starting with Toronto, guys, are any of you shocked? Mando, I'll go to you first.
Shocked? Absolutely not. I feel like the tides have been turning in favor of Toronto little by little, strangely, since the hiring of Chayka and Sundin, for that matter. I was not really shocked. I feel like some folks in the media have discussed the timing and the fact that the timing of it may have been a little bit strange in that why did you wait until some of the premier coaching options may have fallen off the board? I'm a little bit less skeptical about that simply because the pieces weren't in place, i.e. the GM, to make that decision. And the reason I wasn't shocked was because it felt like this was the right move. I know a lot of people have categorized it as a tap-in. There's just so many numbers. I'm sure, Cristian, Brandon, you might have read a lot of the numbers that go into the possession, being outshot. It just felt like the right move, not only for the conversation around Matthews, but the fact that it's hard to move on towards success in the organization and to bringing in new blood and changing a culture when you have a coach that Jonas Siegel put it the best way that I think it could be put when I listened to the Leafs report. It felt like Craig Berube was coaching the team that he wanted, not the team he had. So I think that was a situation where he felt like he had the wrong pieces. It never really was the right fit. And I think that's the reason where we see the coaching move made now. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
Yeah. I think that is definitely an option. I think, or a way to look at it. I think I just wanted to jump in here and say, Brandon, for you, like, do you think it's fair to, is it fair to justify firing him after one poor season and then one, I would say, I wouldn't say great, but I'd say good, like really good season for the Toronto
You can say
Maple Leafs
great in the
last year.
context of the Matthews era. It was the best season they had, just results wise, right? So
Yeah,
that's fair.
Furthest they've ever gotten. Yeah.
So is it fair is it justified having one poor season, missing the playoffs the first time in 10 years, and then just firing the head coach?
I mean, I think if you look at his tenure in its own window, which is the 2 years that he had, you could maybe say no. But I think if you look at where the Leafs organization is as a whole over, beyond these last 2 years, and you can go back 5 years, you can go back 10 years. I mean, maybe not so far, but I mean, certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, it feels like they were at some point going to be in transition, but I don't think they really transitioned all the way through to what they kind of wanted to be. Craig Berube was seen as kind of like almost what Bruce Cassidy is kind of being touted as now, is kind of the guy to potentially take this roster to the next level.
Yeah.
And while he obviously did his best work in his first season with the Leafs, it was clear, to Alex's point, that I think the marriage maybe just wasn't right. Whether the general management team wasn't bringing the type of players that Berube needed for his system. And while I think True Living understood that and tried to kind of make it work, from the foundation of it all, it seems like Berube and the core guys that maybe are still going to be there, there just wasn't going to be a gel there. So I think you can justify it based on what the Leafs are trying to do while they keep messaging that they're going to be doing a retool. It definitely seems like they're taking all the steps towards a full rebuild, starting from square one, at least on the management and now the coaching side. And then we'll see what that means for the players and their group of guys too. So, I think it's a justified, firing, unfortunately, for Berube. He did, I think, did make himself seem like he is still a good coach in the NHL. And I think, to Alex's point, if you can surround him with a team that is ready to go to work in the way that he wants, I think you can still get some results out of him. But for the way that the league is going, I think that might be more difficult to find rosters that fit his style of play more so than the speed and the skill that we see in today's game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Cristian,
I would say it's easily justifiable. If you have another question, throw it at me too. I'll just kind of go around the horn with a bunch of different thoughts. Do you have something else there?
Just in the fact of like, do you feel like since Chayka came in, it makes sense to kind of clear house? Unlike, Kyle Dubas came in and he just accepted Babcock was the head coach and kind of just let that be. Trey Living came in and kind of accepted the fact that Sheldon Keefe was the head coach and just kind of let that be. Chayka's, I wouldn't say it's using a bullet of his because like it's just coming in and making the right decision, but not right decision, but just a decision overall to clear house and start over with a whole new management, including himself. Do you think that played a major factor into this in terms of like he just wants Chayka himself wants to be online with the new head coach or with a head coach when he first came into this organization?
Yeah, I'd say framing like that is maybe like saying that it's like a selfish decision from Schreika's point of view, but I look at it as unselfish in terms of like this is what you need for the organization as a whole to function. Like they use the corporate buzzwords of alignment and verticals and horizontals. Like they're buzzwords, they're cliches, but I mean, listen, like you do need everyone to be on the same page. That's like I don't know if we have to really argue over that. And I honestly would categorize it as the right decision to fire him. Like once you take away like the politics angle of it, I think really, if you're trying to envision a world where he wasn't fired, all the reasons are like off ice reasons. It's what you're saying, like the saving a bullet, see what the team looks like before bringing in your guy. Or be that, upper management above him wouldn't let him do it for financial reasons, right? So, I mean, if you just look at the hockey side of things, like it's even, you can't even look at it simply as, one good year and one bad year. Even in the good year, the results, the process didn't look good under the hood. It was a lot of the goaltending propping it up. And that's not to take anything away from what they did last year. But like process 100% matters. Can you guys name me the last Stanley Cup winner who had a bad process? Like they don't exist. That's why we bring it up. Like that's what filters to the top. The process was terrible under Craig Berube. I feel like anyone who like watches hockey more than casually, you can kind of watch different teams and get a handle of what like the team system is, the play style, all that stuff. With Berube this year, I couldn't even I couldn't, single out that like this is what they are trying to do, this is what they're not trying to do. It was a mess this year. It was an absolute mess. So this is easily justifiable decision.
I want to just bring this up because you just brought up an excellent point. And I was listening to Overdrive, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and they had Rod Brindamore on, and he's talking about his team, and he's like, if you can't figure out what a team's doing in the first 10 minutes, then they don't have a proper system in place. And for the Carolina Hurricanes, it's obvious what they're doing in the first 10 minutes of the game, and it's clear that they're a system. And then when they were done with Brindamore, Jeff O'Neill and Brian Hayes were just when thinking about that with the Leafs, you had no idea what they were in the first 10 minutes. So yeah, exactly to your point, the process was not there. It was terrible. So I just wanted to throw that in there because you actually hear that from a head coach who just is going to the Eastern Conference Finals for the third year in a row or something like that right now. Mm-hmm. And he's detailing what it takes to tell that you actually have a proper system in place. And you just alluded to the point that they absolutely did not have a proper system in place. So I just think that's very interesting.
And this kind of feels like the differentiator between him and Cassidy, right? Listen, I think, and we go up here on the pedestal and I'm saying, this is so easily justifiable. This guy sucks, this and that. I'm not going to be stupid here. I was one of the people clamoring for him to be hired 3 years ago, right? I went into the final season of his in St. Louis telling myself, I hope he's the first coach hired because he would be high on my list as Leafs replacements for Sheldon Keefe. That's what I told myself. And I think our mindset at that time from the outside looking in is that we said, this team needs a motivator. They need someone who understands the accountability part of things. They need someone who's going to kind of instill that physical presence because we believed that is a mindset that, you can't teach skill. And we're having this conversation with Gavin McKenna now. You can't teach skill, but you can teach defense. You can teach intensity. You can teach systems. All these things. We said that's what Berube is going to be great for. I think we realized he didn't, instill the physicality mindset. Yeah. And he is definitely not a systems coach. He is a motivator coach, but he didn't do a good job of that either. No. And I think Cassidy, for example, he's a guy who, his press conferences, you listen to it, there's a lot less empty air with Cassidy's pressers than Berube. And just from what we hear, what we know, he is a lot more X's and O's and motivator, because I think we know he has that in him too. So that's one of the downfalls of Berube as well.
I do have a question, though, about the players. Do you think the players are at fault for this? Because you talked about the players not being able to respond to what he's asking them to do, and he's not getting the most out of his players. But the question for me is, how many players or how many coaches are these players going to go through? The core guys. And if they just can't get it done time after time and time after again, is it more so then eventually just you look at it and say, the players don't work? Eventually, do we get to that point ever?
Yeah. No, you have to. I think you definitely have to. I just think it's the easiest decision to make right now. I don't think by any means the organization is done. And if they are, that's a colossal mistake. But when you look at the way that Berube was managing some of the there was no adjustment. I think that's the biggest takeaway was there's not an adjustment to issues. You saw Max Domi, who has essentially no defensive ability and didn't really produce offensively last year, get the majority of the time outside of McMahon, you could argue, alongside Auston Matthews. Auston Matthews spent the majority of the time during Craig Berube's tenure in the defensive zone compared to other superstars. And that might just be a factor of how the organization, or excuse me, how his defensive schemes was set up and how the process was set up. But then you see Michelli scratched, Easton Cowan scratched at random times, especially after the Olympic break. There was early in the season, Scott Lawton breaks his foot. David Kampf, sorry, there's no chance you're coming in here. We're just going to throw paint at the wall and see if it sort of works. But it sort of was it didn't really feel like there was ever, and Cristian, you alluded to this earlier, there wasn't really a process. But there never really felt like solutions to problems were being implemented. So as much as I would say the players are definitely a big chunk of the reason as to why this didn't work, You have some of the aging core. You have the defensive, just there wasn't the personnel available. At this time, the Leafs have no opportunity but to make a change at coach and then sort of make the changes to the players. So I would say it was a little bit of both. You know what I mean? Like I could think you blame both
sure.
players and coach for this.
But let me put it this way. So the cycle starts with Babcock, right? Like it's like same as Berube, motivator, hard guy. Like it's gonna be a hard lifestyle. They don't work with that. They go to the more skilled. Like you're gonna play more skills. You're gonna play more free with Sheldon Keefe. It doesn't work. They're like, we got to go back to playing hard, and we got to get a motivator in here again, and we need someone that is gonna be tough-nosed on these guys. It doesn't work. Like at some point, is there a point where you just say, we've gone through 2 cycles of these coaches, because it seems like they're probably going to, at least initial feeling is that they're probably going to go back to a skilled type of coach where it's more free and more playmaking ability, if you take Gavin McKenna especially, where I would say, like, at some point, does it feel like you can't repeat the cycle anymore? Like, or is that just crazy to say? Like, because considering you have Matthews and Nylander, some of the best players in the league.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, the cycle always has to end. But I mean, in today's game especially, like, it's very rare that players play out their entire careers with the same team. And then even so, a cycle of a player's career is typically, you know, in their prime, you know, 10, 15 years. And then you kind of reset based on what you have. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Leafs decide to do in the long run. But I mean, I think them going through all of this first signals that they're willing to stick with the same group of guys, at least the main 2, I guess we're down to.
Yeah.
I mean, people seem to be pretty convinced that Morgan Rielly could be on his way out. And at that point, you know, it's like it's Tavares, who I think nobody really has an issue with. He's sticking around.
Yeah.
And then it's
Tavares
Matthews and Nylander. So, I mean, it seems like for now they're committed to those 2 guys, but they're not saying, hey, what do you want? What do you need? You know, they're not bending the knee to them at this point, I don't believe. They're resetting, hoping that they can just quickly put something together and I guess at least to Matthews, you know, should give him a reason to stick around and say, hey, this is what we think we can do. You know, let's see what we got, and then we'll kind of go from there. I mean, that's kind of how I would be looking at it myself. I don't think I'd be in such a huge rush to prove anything or say that that players aren't going to get it done. They haven't got it done, and that's on them. But you always have a chance. You know, it's not exactly his message, but John Chaika has been saying, you know, every season is, you know, precious or special, whatever the wording he's using.
Yeah.
For me, it's more
Sacred.
so that's the word, but it's more so the opportunity of every season, especially when you're in a position like the Leafs have been, where it's like any year in the last, you know, 5 to 10 years, you could say, hey, if the Leafs won a cup, you'd be like, wow, yeah, they've got great players. I could see it happening. They're still kind of in that window, but they have to go out now and kind of approach it as if they need to do serious work to get back into it. And if they do that, they'll have as good a chance as anyone. But that's the problem, that they haven't been able to do good work in terms of like actually setting themselves up for a longer window here.
Do you guys
know what work
then
looks like? Okay, go ahead, Jack. Go.
I was just going to say, do you guys agree then, in the sense of firing Berube signals to, I guess, you guys as a fan base and the players that we're committed to going back into the playoffs or trying to make the playoffs next year and trying to win? Or is it a signal to say, because he said organizational shift, is that a signal towards a rebuild? Which way does it lean for you guys when he says that?
I'll just say quickly, I think they're trying to kind of do both at the same time, which I think the number one pick helps you do that, but you're still going to end up going one way or the other. That's the way it is.
Well, it's one thing to try and do both, but like that's what they're going to try and do from the outset. But I actually think they can achieve it with the hire. Like it's not just going to be speak. So this is why I think it might not be Bruce Cassidy. I will credit Kipper, Nick Kypreos, who brought this up. I think it was last week that he brought this up, where he pushed back on the idea that it's a, surefire, you just hired Cassidy. And that's because if things go bad next year, like, you can't have Cassidy be the Mike Sullivan with the Rangers, right? Because that feels like a mismatch in terms of the rebuild timeline. and I brought this up with Brando last week. So you're going to try and hire someone who, whether it goes good or bad, you're sticking with them beyond next year. That's what I think they're going to try to do. And so it's not
100%.
about like following the wave one way or another, because like this is just an example of like one half of the wave, but like you go from Guy Boucher to John Cooper, you know, that was a real good switch, right? Just for the sake of going from like hard nose to skill. But I think what you're trying to do, and like you guys can tell me if I'm being too like pie in the sky or like naive and idealistic, but before they hired a GM and president, I was begging for like, you know, Keith Pally, hire the best person available for the job, like take all of your bias out of it, let them decide hockey moves going forward. We can argue that probably isn't what happened, but hires have been made now. Can I at least have the guys that were hired hire a coach? So GM, Shaka and Sundin, please hire a coach that isn't influenced by whether Matthews is going or staying, Willie, whatever. Take all that crap out of it. You need to hire the best coach you think for your quote unquote vision going forward. And that's more than a 1-year timeline. That's probably closer to the McKenna timeline, right? Let's just say that. So that's where I'm at on it. I'm not really married to a name, but I think Cassidy, based off of what I'm saying here, he isn't a do both. He's a you are trying to win, and that is it. If it goes bad, it's tough to move forward with him.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think there's one team that we all think should probably take Bruce Cassidy, and that's the team of the Edmonton Oilers that we'll get to in a matter of minutes here. But the last thing I think we need to touch on this Toronto Maple Leafs and Craig Berube being fired is Auston Matthews, the captain, because that is a massive storyline that is developing and continues to develop of whether or not he wants to actually commit to the team, and he's not even committed to next season, according to Chris Johnson yet. So when you think about it, yesterday, John Chayka, during his press conference, was asked directly, did Auston Matthews have any influence whatsoever on this decision? And he said no, none.
It's the most direct answer he's given in like 7 availabilities so far, right? Like that, and no beating around the bush there.
And no beating around the bush, just straight up. And you know what? He could be lying. He very well could be lying. But from what Chayka said, he has no ties to this firing of Craig Berube. So that also signals, I would assume, that they're not just thinking about Auston Matthews and what they have to do to impress Auston Matthews to stay. It is more so thinking about the overall organization vision about where we want to be in the future. Is that what you guys took away from that as well, or am I off
Doesn't
the
that
mark?
sound great? I love how that sounds. That sounds awesome. Me and Brando talked about this last week as well. Yeah. Sorry, that does or doesn't sound great?
That does sound great. That does sound
okay,
great.
right? And listen, talk is cheap. Like Shaika mentioned at his introductory presser, like talk is cheap in this market. You build credibility with your actions, and he 100% has to do that. This is going to also sound cheap, especially with like hindsight. Please just believe me when I say I had this stance before the draft lottery, because, you know, looking back, we had this like, I don't know, 8-hour period between the Matthews report coming out and the draft lottery. Or trust me, I was doing a lot of consuming of media and just stewing with the thoughts of that Matthews report. So believe me when I say I really do not think there's a reason to have fear that Matthews is leaving if you're in Leafs Nation. Like, and I mean that from the standpoint of there's a chance he goes. Do not fear the chance that he goes. Because if he goes, like, there is still a future for the team. They shouldn't be beholden to Matthews or Nylander or whatever. In our lost episode where we talked about the Pelly presser, my wish was that the face of the Toronto Maple Leafs next season wouldn't be Auston Matthews or William Nylander. It would be, you know, the guys above him or the coach, whoever. And I think this is how you accomplish that. Like, you're not supposed to be auditioning for him. Like, he can also audition for you. I don't think he should have influenced the decision. I'm happy to hear that, you know, hopefully Trega's being upfront with the idea that he didn't influence it and none of the players did. That's how it should be. I don't fear the idea that he might leave. If he asks out, there is a path to a future without Auston Matthews and William Nylander. Like, it exists. I don't know why there has to be this stress that he could leave. In the past the past 2 years, we have seen 40 goal, 40 point, little less than a point per game Auston Matthews. He's maybe worth 80% of his current contract, and he's going to ask for a 20% raise. Like, why should we be so, you know, running to sign that deal? Like, it shouldn't be like that.
Do you think that is because of Craig Berube, or do you think it's because of his injuries and just not being or his decline? Like there is two options here. There is
the injuries. Craig Berube does not make Auston Matthews' shot velocity and skating speed decline. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I would say that there's a combo, though, that you can say that there's an influence, but that's why I don't think that, and more to your point, Cristian, like I don't know what credibility John Chayka doesn't have much now, even with these two immediate wins in your lap. What would be the benefit of lying right off the bat? Now, I'm not saying that he understands that and he's just going to be appeasing to the masses, but I have a feeling he has to be upfront in order to earn any credibility with the fan base in the first place.
For sure.
And the reports coming out that there hasn't even been a conversation with Matthews. There's likely been conversations with Tanev and Nylander and all of the local guys, but scheduling issues have not allowed for Matthews to have a conversation, which is fully fair. And I am, as a fan, every single day almost turning the dial towards let's let him leave. And I'm not fully invested in it, but I'm to the point of maybe it's just because it's the off season for Toronto and the narratives have no choice but to fester out into the world. And we're listening to this every day, but I'm a little bit just thinking like, I think it's just, you don't want to be handcuffed to one star player and then that derail what could be the sproutings of something good. There are going to be an 11 or 12-year gap between Gavin McKenna and Auston Matthews. And if those are your future franchise players, there has to be coordination, and likely being Gavin McKenna, that's what we're saying. Even if it's Stenberg, the age gap doesn't shrink. I think you have to make contingency plans for either way, but you have to make a decision, like you said, that has nothing to do with Matthews. If he fits the bill, great. If he doesn't perform next year and he wants to move, so be it. You have to make the decision that's right for the organization. Where I don't know if we're going to talk about coaching hires, but does that mean a Manny Malhotra, a young and up and coming guy who comes in and has no basis for what's going on with this specific realm or this specific version of the Leafs, and he just sort of has his pick of the litter with a young guy and possibly McKenna? Maybe. But at the end of the day, you have to make the choice that's right for the future of the Leafs, not, like you said, Cristian, not just what Auston Matthews might want to do.
Yeah.
Well, we do know that there is no timeline
Preach, Mando.
here.
Preach, bud.
We do know that there is no timeline in terms of when the Leafs are going to hire someone, and it will be a wide search, is what Chayka said yesterday. I would imagine, though, that there will be
before the draft. That's when you're
there will be a coach in place at the combine.
Like, you want your coach to be part of the interview process with these prospects. Like,
so I figure we'll see a coach by then. But I do think it's going to take a little bit, just like the GM search took 3 weeks. I figure it will probably take the same amount of time. So I just want to go back and just fully get your guys' transparent answers with this one, because it is a big thing. I seen a lot of discourse yesterday about Auston Matthews and whether or not Craig Berube's system that he wanted to play is holding Auston Matthews, or why the dip in his production happened over the last 2 years. Do you guys actually believe? Do you guys believe that we will see a 50, 60 goal scorer, Auston Matthews, 100-point player, who he was under the Keefe era, next season?
I would go back to my previous point of, the coach doesn't, Auston Matthews could handpick his coach, and it shouldn't necessarily be the reason why his shot velocity or skating returns. So number one on the Matthews side of things is his health, but that's it's not black and white. 100% Craig Berube's systems were not, doing Matthews well. Mando mentioned, he was taking more defensive starts than ever before, being more of this Barkov type player. So it wasn't conducive to his success. But if Matthews is returning to form next year, yes, I'll credit the coach, but I would credit his health returning, or I would credit, one of the most talented players in the league adapting his game, understanding that he has new physical limitations and, trying to score in different ways. That's another option as well here. He maybe he can't, curl and drag it from the top of the circle anymore because the shot velocity is down. But you're really freaking skilled, Auston. Can I maybe see you more in the slot, maybe in the net front, maybe playing a heavier cycle game? Like, you're that talented. You should be able to come up with your new game. Like, I would say a Crosby's game has matured post concussions. He's not a speed skill guy,
for sure.
like he is those, obviously. But when I think of Crosby, I think of a dude who's a tree trunk, who's one of the best tippers in the league, the backhand. That's not what we associated young Sidney Crosby with before his concussions. So that's what I would ask of Matthews. It's not necessarily, the coaching is probably C on the totem pole for me.
He thinks the game better than anyone else now. Like he's thinking 1-2 plays ahead of everyone else, and he's not going to put himself.
But we hold Matthews' talents in that like upper category, right? So he should be good enough to figure it out.
Okay, so what's the odds? So you guys, I mean, I think I know what the answer is going to be here, but because you guys are Leafs fans, and I'm just going to ask, what are the odds? And we'll go with Mando, Brandon, Cristian. What are the odds that we'll just say, what are the odds that Matthews is on the Maple Leafs at the start of the next season?
Oh, odds. I'd say like 90% this next season.
Okay.
Like I think more likely than not, I would put my money that he's on this team next season. I don't know what he expects. Like, for example, the reports are he's going to be more making his decision after free agency. That might be true, but I don't know if that is true. What do you expect Chayka to do? Move mountains? Like, do you expect him to birth 5 unbelievable players to fit all the slots? It's extremely hard in this day and age to make changes after one offseason. Now, that being said, you could probably make 2 or 3 significant moves, whether that be a defenseman or another center down the middle that could play more defensive minutes. Maybe you make 2 or 3 moves that might be intriguing. I have a hard time believing that one off season will completely derail Auston Matthews' mindset of this team. I think he will likely give one more shot this season. Now, the trade deadline next year might be a different story, but as of September, whatever, or October, whatever, I think you see Auston Matthews in a Leafs uniform.
Okay, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly agree with you, Alex. I think it's like, I would say if we're talking percentages, I'd say 90 plus for sure that he's going to start the season with the Leafs. Whether or not he finishes the season with the Leafs could be, an interesting question. This time next year, are we talking about, him on another team or maybe going into the offseason next year? Like, well, obviously it's going to be critical at that point to make your decision. But I think it's hard to picture, Justin, you asked about, the chances that he gets back to scoring, 69 goals or even 60 goals. I mean, it's hard to see a world right now where the Auston Matthews we now know is a 60-goal scorer again in the NHL. But I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that in a few years, if he can truly get his health figured out, which I still don't really, it's unfortunate that he had kind of the freak accident that he had with Gudas. But I think that just continues to derail his long injury history. And unfortunately, it's unlikely he'll, be at 100% for very long, if at all, this upcoming season. So we'll hope the best for him. But that's kind of where I'm at with Matthews right now.
And Cristian?
I'd say 75%. Maybe go a little bit lower just because, it's the idea of not putting too much blind faith and giving too much benefit of the doubt to the new front office, just because like we've gone over it already. Like the track record or lack of track record for Sundin speaks for itself. You'd put that in front of anyone, whether they understand hockey or not, and you'd say, I'd probably not hire these people. So I think we all agree that's kind of everyone's stance. However, those hirings are, done with. We have to give them an opportunity to, put words into action. But the 25% just comes from what you guys are saying in terms of like, okay, you have the first overall pick. No one's taking that from you. You decide what to do with it. Let's just assume McKenna. Cool. But, there is definitely like moving parts as far as free agency and trades are concerned. What if we find out that, GMs aren't willing to play ball with John Chayka, despite what he says about his great relationships? What if we find out that Darren Radish is re-signing in Tampa and Rasmus Anderson's re-signing in Vegas after they win the cup, right? Now those two options, and then there's a chasm to the next puck-moving defenseman in free agency. After that, like, I think they have to lean free agency heavy to put together a roster that, let's say, impresses Matthews for next year, which we talked about. Maybe isn't how you should go about it, but they don't have the assets to make great trades. They should be looking to pick up free players in free agency. So that 25% is more just, managing for the fact that there's these moving parts than it is anything else.
I think it's likely, quickly, Justin, and I'm sure you guys kind of agree, and I think the majority of maybe Leafs Nation agree that as much as they want to talk about being good as quickly as possible, I think there's going to be like a watershed moment at some point in this, new organization's
Next season, yeah.
purview. Yeah, next year at some point where they throw their gloves on the floor and say we can't do this. We're not going to be able to do this. And because even if you trade Auston Matthews or you trade William Nylander or you do whatever, like that's more of a like, and I understand why they're saying they want to continue to work with these guys. Is like that's more of a risk than anything else because you never know what you're getting from players outside of the organization or from draft picks to come, or like you can rebuild with hopes, but look at the Buffalo Sabres. Like, you could end up in perpetuity for 10, 15 years just because you'd rather, whatever, see what the other side is like when, the one thing we know about Auston Matthews, and Cristian alluded to this too, is like he is an elite player who has a very specific skill set that can help you win hockey games. And that's the goal of all of this. So it's like figuring out what you can do. But I think that they're going to learn the hard way that they have to kind of restart, which is the last thing that they obviously want to do.
So you guys
I'm
feel
open
this
to
way.
the idea that they have a good roster next year. I am really open to a
It's
world
definitely
where
possible.
they can get
It'll
creative
be better,
and
better, yeah.
Yeah,
You guys
better. Yeah,
feel
like,
this way.
But who's going to
okay.
take like the
Okay,
like
I just
who's going to
wanna know,
take the
you guys-
risk to like take on what the Leafs have, knowing and then giving back? So like the Leafs are going to have to lose a trade or two at some point too, because of
Yeah,
their
for sure.
value. The value of players going into this offseason is much lower than what it would have been last year at this time or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
But so
No,
you
the
guys
path to a
feel
good
this.
roster this year has to do with free agency. Like I said,
Yeah,
being able
definitely.
to,
You
get
have to
the
hit
guys
on
that are available
everything.
there. Like you
Yeah.
do have to hit on them, and you're asking to hit on them next year. Like it could be a contract that's bad in the future. Like if you're talking Radish or Anderson, $8 million plus, like you don't love that, but like that's the kind of the path to a roster that you say, okay, I can convince
Yeah.
this is a playoff team. So there is as much a path that then there is the doomsday path that like we're kind of outlining as well.
You guys gave your percentages about what Matthews or how you feel like Matthews is going to be next year, or is he going to be on the team next year? If it was actually up to you, though, would you trade Matthews this offseason? Would you do it?
I don't know.
Entirely
if you're
dependent on
getting...
health.
But yeah, I
Entirely
don't. That's what
dependent.
I don't think you're getting any value. Like this is the worst trade value you'd probably get for him, right?
Well,
that
I've
hard
had
to
this
argue?
conversation
I think
too.
I would disagree because
am.
the worst trade value would be waiting until the final year and knowing that he's not going to resign
I
and
see.
then trading
Okay.
him. So
I
you're
see-
2
I see your
years
point.
out. Like you're
I
like
don't
the
think
Quinn Hughes
Matthews'
even
trade
more.
value
your
is
point.
bad though. Like in terms of like I would say this. There's the Jack Eichel example that I think of. A guy who's asking to get a surgery that no NHL player ever has had before. And, you can argue that, well, the Sabres didn't like immediately become something great, but, they found a path away from that trade that no one really slammed them for. I think of the Kawhi trade, right? I think of trying to get a very much a distressed asset from a health standpoint. And they're able to swing that deal if you're the San Antonio side of things. And I think they're really lucky that we have such a recent example of a star player being traded in Quinn Hughes. Like GMs convinced themselves, like Brett Shweley even convinced himself of turning Dakota Joshua into Tom Wilson this year. You think a GM won't convince himself of being able to fix Auston Matthews, whether that be from a health standpoint or a role standpoint? I really do think, and what is it, even if it's like, let's just say 80% of the Quinn Hughes trade, if he's the one asking out and he isn't playing ball, like I'm not complaining about that personally.
But would you personally, if you're running the organization, would you trade him this offseason? That's the question. Would you trade him?
So if I'm saying it's dependent on health and we don't have an answer on his health, I'm then taking it into my own hands, and I'm probably leaning more towards yes, because you don't know what his health is. So that's what I would say.
I mean, I'm giving him. I'm under the assumption that he's gonna play and be, close to healthy this season. As much as that, whatever that means.
When I talk about his health, like I don't care about the knee. Like, does the knee worry you guys?
I know. No. That's what I mean.
It's the back. It's the back, right?
Yeah, it's the
more so
it's
the back.
people say it's the wrist.
The problem
we
is
don't even know which part of the body it is, right?
Yeah.
And I worry about what is the recovery from a terrible knee injury due to your back. That just puts more pressure on. Like,
sure, yeah.
And he's another year older. Like, there's a lot of factors with the health, and that's why I say, like, even if he is. If just like I think someone said 80%. If he was 80% going into the season with a chance to continue to recover and going forward, whatever, knowing that it's not like a debilitating thing. I think I wouldn't trade him this offseason. Like I said, I would play it out and hopefully he has a good season for what he is now. And you can hopefully drive his value up a little bit, maybe do the Quinn Hughes thing, trade him in the season later and closer to the deadline. Maybe you get desperate. Because I assume that yes, I agree that his value next season at this time would obviously be less than it is now. But also, like, he could have if he does play out 70 games and has a good statistical season, even with his contract status,
teams will
saw Hughes get dealt. Like, teams will still want it. So I think I would wait. I think right now you're probably in the worst spot that you could be in terms of trying to deal him. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Is I totally understand that. I understand what I meant and understand the point of, like, his trade value goes lower the less amount of contract years on his contract left. That makes total sense. If you have a player right now that we don't know if he's actually not comfortable here or if he's just not sure, but if he's like, hey guys, like, I'm willing to play, I'm happy. I have a hard time getting rid of a player like that, because that is, you're signing on the dotted line that you were rebuilding. You're at least not retooling right now. I think maybe I'm wrong saying that. I don't see a situation where you're better. You're right. There's no way you're better without Auston Matthews than with, especially in that particular trade. I would say you'd almost, like, as much as the Minnesota Wild did get an extremely beneficial, the Vancouver Canucks did pull in an incredible return. You are worse as a result. They were the worst team in the league. Now, that isn't the be-all, end-all of their team, but that being said, you're just losing that trade. Now, you might have to lose the trade, like you said, Brandon, I believe earlier, to win some of the other ones in the future. Right now, no, I would not trade him, but I could see the argument for it if this offseason goes a little bit off the rails.
Okay, well, I'm glad we had this Leafs hash out corner for a good chunk of this pod. I'm happy you guys I hope you guys got your thoughts out on what you guys were hoping to get out on this. I think we touched a lot of topics on the Craig Berube firing, or the reaction from everything from the Craig Berube firing.
I don't have a name in mind yet for hiring him either. So
I don't think anyone has a name.
Still have to research. So like, yeah.
Now we switch to the Edmonton Oilers, who have relieved Kris Knoblauch of his duties, and talk about something that we talked about in the Craig Berube thing was lack of adjustments. I think that's probably the biggest reason why Kris Knoblauch is without a job today, is because of the lack of adjustments. And for that reason, then was called out by his captain, Connor McDavid, not just once, not just twice, like 3 times over the course of from last year's Stanley Cup final to during this season, especially as well as Leon Draisaitl also calling out the coaching staff as well. This one feels like it's Bruce Cassidy or bust. Am I correct? Or do you guys feel that way as well? Or what do you guys feel like for the Edmonton Oilers here?
Can I just jump in to ask, if we thought about the Oilers and the Leafs, let's say, I don't want to bring in the Leafs more than this one question, but 6 weeks ago, let's say 2 months ago, when you look at the day today, would you ever have thought that the Oilers could contend for more of a dysfunctional franchise than the Leafs when you look at right now? Like, look at their last week, man. I don't know, dude. Look at what happened here. You might lose your generational talent based on one off season, and you go behind the coach's back, and like that just shows. I don't know if that just shows an area. And Bruce Cassidy's probably not scared off.
Mando,
You get what I'm trying to say? Like, I just feel like,
I mean, the fact that we're not even considering at least not us, we all are, but like that ownership, as much as you're talking about firing Knoblauch, that you're not talking about Stan Bowman is hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, Stan Bowman not being fired is the most hilarious thing ever.
Yeah, like that is dysfunction right there. And that's like if the Leafs had Cap Bradtree living, right? Which they were talking contract extension with him during the year. So yeah, I mean, for me, I do think it's Bruce Cassidy or bust though, because like it just feels like they've signaled their guy, and we've heard like no other names so far. Like like Luke Fox put out an article today of here's 7 names for the Leafs job. I haven't seen like anything other than the Oilers want Bruce Cassidy. They just want Bruce Cassidy, and that's it. So it does feel like him or bust.
How does that even work though with the whole permission and
I know.
everything like that?
So
Like,
this is another thing that we have to get into is this whole permission thing. But the reason why it feels like Bruce Cassidy or bust, I would say, is because like you talked about being in a situation where the Leafs, it doesn't make sense for them to hire him because they're not a coach away from winning. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
They
they're
need a
not
coach for if you win or lose. Edmonton doesn't care about, like, if they have a lose season, it is an
Edmonton is
outright
there.
failure. That's it. Yeah.
Edmonton is there. They're in the spot that Bruce Cassidy is really good at getting the most out of his players for a short period of time, such as like 2 or 3 years, and he can get you to the promised land. He already proved that with Vegas. So this is why it feels like cup or bust. But yes, this whole situation is terrible in the sense of for everyone, because you have the leaked report that comes out. That's Mando, that is the dysfunction, or the I guess is what's the word?
Dysfunctional, just out of touch.
Yeah,
like
just
the guys aren't aligned.
Yeah.
guys aren't aligned. Kind of feels like you're stabbing Kris Knoblauch in the back, not being upfront with him, telling him that hey, or firing him before you're going and looking at Bruce Cassidy. That report comes out. Obviously, there's no way Kris Knoblauch was ever going to step back into the Edmonton Oilers building after that report came out. But the thing that still has not been decided is whether or not Vegas will give Edmonton permission. Now, from my understanding on reading up on this a little bit more, is the team better have a damn good excuse for why they are denying permission to another team if they fired such head coach, which in this case would be Bruce Cassidy. The reason is not public. I don't know if we'll ever know. And if we do know, it will probably be because the Edmonton Oilers don't end up getting Bruce Cassidy. If they end up getting Bruce Cassidy, this will go away. But if they end up not getting Bruce Cassidy, this will become a bigger story because it basically is, from my understanding, and I could be understanding this wrong, is the Vegas Golden Knights are basically like, he's under contract. We fired him. We understand we fired him. He's under contract, but no, you're not allowed to talk to him. We don't care. We really do not care. You're just not going to talk to him.
Implying that it's because, like, hey, you're in our division.
Yeah,
We're competing against you.
And I think they're honestly right for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, like
so you guys are thinking they're right. You guys think that's totally fine.
So.
Well, Judd,
there's no precedent for this. There's no precedent for blocking a coach, and this shouldn't be how it works.
You can't block a coach.
Justin, you know as well as I do, though, that maybe not this exact situation, but in the NFL, you'd slide a pick.
This does feel very NFL.
You'd slide a pick to the other team, and you'd say, "Okay, you go ahead." And I think that's a fair thing. Like, you could trade. Like, obviously, I know you can trade coaches in the NHL too. It just never happens. But like, it should be a compensatory thing. It shouldn't. I agree. It shouldn't be like an outright. You can't talk to that guy.
The NHL used to have this though.
Well, then maybe they should bring it back.
Well, the idea
who might have been the last hire is Lou Lamoriello. I think was the last compensatory hire. I think we had to give the Devils a 3rd round pick for hiring Lou Lamoriello, and then they stopped.
This is dumb because you fired the guy. You simply told him your duties are not needed here anymore.
Yeah.
You can't then
Bruce, we hate
control that guy.
Edmonton, he's ours.
But I will give you a real world example of this, Justin. Like, if you work in other industries, high value industries that have high competition between companies. If you sign a contract, a lot of those contracts say you can't work for a competitor for X amount of years or X amount of this.
No compete clause.
Very much the same.
This happens in Formula One a lot.
There you go. So it's not unknown to sports. So I mean, it's. I gotta credit the Golden Knights because again, they're just another example of being a cutthroat organization that doesn't care about anything.
Hell, this is.
And Elliot Friedman reported this is not the first time they've done this.
This is not the first time. It's just not as prominent. It's just not as prominent. It's been like with assistants in the past. It's just not as big of a name. And so now that it's this big of a name and this big of a story, it is going to get some shine. And like, if they don't have an excuse, though, if their excuses are in the division, if their excuses are in the division, that is an absolute terrible excuse.
I
He's
think
not good enough to say, oh yeah, you cannot go talk to him.
I have
That
a
is
feeling
ridiculous.
Bruce Cassidy will end up in Edmonton if he wants to. Like I just think like Cristian, I think you just said it, like the league will step in. It's now that being said, like I do agree, Brandon. I do think if you're Vegas, like if you can get away with this, why wouldn't you? They might win the cup and then go, no, sorry, you're still not getting Bruce Cassidy. Like it's just it's crazy how it works. I would listen. We're in the media business.
As hell.
We're in the entertainment business. But imagine if the Oilers sent like Kasperi Kapanen over. You take Kapanen, we'll go ahead and take Bruce Cassidy. You know, it's just is a random example, but you never know. Yeah. It would be funny, and I do think the league will step in if this situation. I would not be surprised if in 2-3 weeks, a month, Bruce Cassidy ends up with Edmonton, because I just think, and I don't even know if I read this or heard this correctly. I thought Elliot Friedman reported that they blocked it, but it was more just like, all right, maybe later we'll grant you permission. I don't know if it was outright like this is just for everything.
They didn't deny it. They withheld it, which was what Frank Saravelli was going on about.
You're procrastinating, you know? Like,
exactly.
I can sympathize with the procrastinator, you know?
We're still in the playoffs. We're still
that's the thing. We're still in the playoffs. We don't want to deal with this right now.
The division theory is they also withheld
Pete DeBoer,
right? Vegas also withheld permission for the LA Kings to talk to Bruce Cassidy.
Yes,
why would you be afraid? Why would you be afraid of the LA Kings? They suck. They suck.
Like the LA Kings are not going to get Bruce Cassidy. They're so far away from.
But I think that does help their case in a potential investigation, is saying, hey, these two teams in our division, we have a strong policy that we're not going to allow our coaches to interview with them. That's within our division. That's and they can say, hey, that's kind of, at the very least, the NHL would just say, hey, okay, whatever, you got to let them do it. But
here's the problem. If it comes out in the next week that the Toronto Maple Leafs are able to talk to Bruce Cassidy,
that'd be
and then if the Los Angeles Kings and the Edmonton Oilers can't, there is a major problem here.
Of course.
Trades between Toronto and those teams for the next decade.
As if Toronto already doesn't have a target on their back for getting the first pick. With Vancouver already hates Toronto. Now Edmonton hates Toronto. Montreal just
Vegas and Toronto have been working side by side for a little bit now, right? Like they've been working. They were working on a Mitch Marner deal a couple of years ago.
Listen, we'll see what that late first round pick turns out to be before we make any conversations about what the Mitch Marner pick. No, but I think it's an interesting story now. I have a feeling in like a month's time it'll be blown up, like you said, Justin. I just have a feeling if Bruce Cassidy wants to be in Edmonton, I have a feeling he'll end up being there.
So do you guys feel like he wants to be in Edmonton?
I don't think. Why would you?
From the reporting we've heard, that's his top choice.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense.
It
makes sense. It's the closest team to winning out of the teams that are available, and obviously he is a guy that's going to get them across the finish line.
Are they that
going to say that's closer to winning?
I don't think they're that close anymore. I think they were.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I know what you mean, Brandon.
But are we saying closest of the teams that have a vacancy, or just in general? Like those are two different things.
Like, who have a vacancy?
I know what you mean in general, Justin. They're not the way that things are going in the West. They're not going to be like even next year. Like unless they make major changes, and which is why the Stan Bowman thing is crazy. Like they're gonna be largely the same roster, I think, next season, and that includes the goaltending, which is that I don't see that team as a serious contender.
You've got to change. You have to put Anaheim ahead of them. They beat them.
Yeah,
you got
to put Vegas, obviously Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas. That's 5-6 teams.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
Stan Bowman has a big offseason ahead of him. If he does nothing, if he stands put, then yes, the Edmonton Oilers are cooked going into next season, and you can kiss Connor McDavid goodbye. Yeah. But if he somehow miraculously pulls off a great offseason where they actually get a bona fide number one goaltender.
And you're saying they're close right now.
Yeah, I'm saying they're close. You have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's like
that has nothing to do with like hiring a good coach.
You have Evan Bouchard. I understand Evan Bouchard has some defensive.
If it's not Bruce Cassidy, who are they going to hire? Peter Laviolette? You going to take them then?
That's exactly who they're going to have to hire. If it's not Bruce Cassidy, that's who they're going to have to hire.
If they hire Peter Laviolette, you can cross them off their close list, like personally.
But just I'm just trying to say that they were closest 2 years ago when they were or 3 years ago when they were right on the doorstep. They fired Woodcroft. Okay, here comes McDavid's guy Knoblauch to take him to the promised land. And he did exactly what they wanted him to do, which was they got to back-to-back cup finals. But now they're on the other side of that. And that's not an easy thing to just turn back on.
But the thing is,
and compare that roster to today's
we understand why we understand why he was fired. This one's a more justified firing, in my opinion, even though he had better results than Craig Berube.
I don't think it's adjustment.
Because he didn't
firing
adjust.
is not
adjust.
What is he supposed to adjust? Like Connor Ingram's and Tristan Jarry's pads in the locker room?
How about we adjust the penalty kill? How about we adjust that? How about instead of trying to run the same kind of
on
penalty?
the special teams? This is what I would say. Listen, he runs way too hard. Like, he leans heavily on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Exactly.
Like, there's definitely teams in the league that lean very heavily on their stars. And I think like those two have been vocal about how that's not the right way to work.
Yeah.
But once again, we know that the hand that Knoblauch's been dealt. How many times do they have to rely on a folk hero in a playoff series? Like, we've done it with Adam Henrique. We've done it with Kasperi Kapanen multiple times. Like, Colorado doesn't rely on Parker Kelly hat tricks. You know what I mean? Like, they rely on their big guys, but this is the thing. They have way more secondary scoring, whereas Edmonton, it's the best guys in the league. And it feels like then there's, you know, like guys that might not be on half the other playoff rosters, right? Like, it is 100% a roster construction thing first and foremost. It is.
But how are you going? They're close because they still have those two guys, and they still have
for sure. No one
and
disagrees with that.
They still are going to be in the playoffs next year. There's no question about that. The question then comes down to: are you going to address the goaltending? Are you going to address the defense? Is the coach going to be able to get the most out of these guys
more? But you want better guys to extract from, like, right? Like,
the one
you gotta they got steps. I would say that their forward group, I can see secondary scoring coming with Matt Savoy taking a step this year, and you'd expect Isaac Howard to take a step, and Quinn Hudson also took a step last year. So I think that they still have some guys
Howard and
that
Hudson
are
question marks for sure. You can't write them in.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not booking them in for 50 points or 40 points next year, but I'm saying, like, you would hope that they continue to progress the way that they did this season, a point per game in the AHL level, that they would be a decent 30 to 40 point player at the NHL level. Not guaranteed, but
the forwards are low on the list. Like we are talking about, it's defense first and foremost. You figure it out at forward. You can always trade for a bottom six forward at a deadline. They are the bullpen arm of the NHL, right? So.
I like Connor Murphy, right?
The only thing I'll say on your side, Justin, to give you some justification of your point of being a justified firing, is that you have a timeline. Like, there is a 2-year timeline. We have from now until the end of Connor McDavid's contract to make the playoffs to win the cup, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the finals is going to make a difference.
Yeah. It does not make a difference. It is.
You have one goal. So that's why it's seasons. Like, that is why I can see it being like anything at this point is justified. That is my only argument for that.
If your ownership, you have 2 years, like we just laid it out. You have 2 years to win the cup, and you're not going to fire Stan Bowman as well.
Okay,
that's the crazy
agree on that. Yes,
and
I will say, I'm not arguing that, like, the Knoblauch firing isn't justified in terms of, like, let's just say it was the team that we watched most closely, Toronto. Like, it's just obvious the relationship there has stopped working between. You don't even have to go the whole roster. When you have McDavid and Draisaitl like insinuating things about the coach, saying that's the question for Knobber, like, it's done. It's done. Yeah. Whether you think he's a cup, caliber coach, like, you can't do it. So I when I say that, I'm not arguing that that Knoblauch was erroneously fired. Like, no, you know what I would do? I'd fire him and Bowman. That's what we're advocating
for sure.
No, you're right. You're right. It is a roster management. Even when you watch, like, Edmonton has taken, and I'm half joking here, but they've taken how many blows since losing in the first round. You saw the signing of Dylan Holloway the day after they lost. Then Brett Kulak out of nowhere wins the series for Avalanche. I know these aren't like typical like things that you would see in
This
NHL.
is gut punches to the fan base.
It's gut punches, and it's just reminders of, hey, remember Tristan Jarry? Yeah, because he's still here. Remember Brett Kulak? Well, if you didn't, go check out last night's game. And it's just it's the roster construction that I agree is number one. But if that's not going to be a change, you have no choice to make the Kris Knoblauch move. But it is way beyond that for Edmonton. I love watching it. I'm sorry.
I think we can all agree.
I will always say too, like
Oilers.
Listen, Oilers are so much fun off the ice, but on the ice too. Like any game involving the Oilers is must watch, and it's it's high time they start matching it off the ice. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, but I think we can all agree they don't make that Tristan Jarry trade, and they're probably better off last year.
Yeah, I would agree with
that.
There's 10 times better
management,
right?
Yeah. Like in terms of their overall roster construction. Like Brett Kulak is a solid fifth defenseman or sixth defenseman. Yeah. He's playing great in Colorado right now. Like we said, he scored the overtime winner last night to clinch the series. It just,
they did the classic thing where they listened to the fans. It seems.
Yeah. You wonder.
I don't know if he even did that. He didn't listen to the fans because he didn't go out and get a first. He didn't go out and get a number one goaltender.
They got desperate for a hope and a prayer. They threw their.
How long has the fan base been asking for these certain changes? Like this is what's so frustrating is when fans on the outside can diagnose the problem and then you're taking
but before they didn't have like the 2 years of McDavid. Like it changed this year with.
But if you honestly, if you're Sam Bowman, do you realistically think that trading for Tristan Jarry was going to be the solution? Because that was absolutely stupid.
Of course they thought that. They wouldn't have done that if
they definitely thought that. But this is the problem with Bowman, right? Is that he actually thought that. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I can't remember if I've brought it up here before. No, I know. I think I've brought it up. Maybe I haven't. After the deadline, they put out a behind-the-scenes video, the Oilers did, of them negotiating the Jason Dickinson-Mangiapane deal in real time. It's a hilarious watch if you haven't seen it. It honestly makes them look very amateur. Like, Bowman just kind of comes up with the trade framework on the spot. Just like, what if we add a first to Mangiapane and we'll get Dickinson? Doesn't that sound great? And everyone just kind of nods along like, yep. They just don't it just shows you what their thought process / lack of thought process looks like. Watch that video if you haven't seen it. It's a lot. It's very insightful.
Interesting.
So like they felt desperate. You got your talk like Bryn. You're saying that they felt desperate. You're saying that they felt the pressure from the fans. And like Cristian said, they felt that for years. I understand the McDavid thing kicks in and you're like, okay, we actually have to do something about this now because like we have a certain clock that is ticking, a time bomb that is basically like Connor McDavid's leaving here and whatever the clock is counting down from for 3 years. But would you not then say, all right, F it, I'm going to go for the holy grail and actually get a bona fide number one goaltender and actually fix this freaking problem
with what assets?
Were they doing that?
They put themselves in a terrible hole.
You had first round picks to trade. They did it for Jason Dickinson.
Exactly.
So why not trade a first round pick and whatever else you had to give up to go get?
Who's giving up? Who's giving that goalie up?
Though? Yeah, exactly. So they did the best they could.
That's the thing is, I think when we
talk
about
Wallstead,
well, when we talk about Toronto, is the thing is like people understand how when you look at a team like Toronto and we talk about Auston Matthews, everyone understands the situation the Leafs are in. They're not going to give the biggest assets. Like that's the problem with Edmonton. You understand how desperate they are. They're going to try and gauge more and give me more. You guys know you want a Wallstead. I want 3 players and a draft pick. So, and they're just not willing to do that, I guess.
Well, then Edmonton should have called up Toronto last year and said, hey, give me Joseph Waugh.
I don't know. That would have been a great play.
We have a Dennis Hildeby with your name on it, but guess
that
what?
That would have been a roster.
Well, I mean, they can still do that. Like, at least they need to trade a goalie, but guess what? I look at their roster and
that's going to satisfy
here.
Edmonton Oilers fans. Dennis Hildeby, new starting goaltender. He's going to be the one that leads us to the promised land.
He makes a fifth less. He makes 1/5 of what Jarry makes. You could have him and a $4 million defenseman. It probably gets you a lot farther. Anyways, we're probably beating a dead horse here, but I would also say you can you can copy paste this entire conversation past 3 GMs. Like Chiarelli, Holland, and Bowman is an all-time horrible run. And so maybe we pointed at ownership as well for being terrible at hiring people. Right?
Here is my only thought, and I feel like people forget this, and maybe people don't, but people do. What, like 12 hours before Jacob Markstrom became a Calgary Flame was an Edmonton Oiler.
Yeah.
So I think I always remind myself they did try, and they had Markstrom, and last minute he said, "I'm just gonna go cross province."
As a wise person once said, "Who cares? Work harder. Try and get another goalie."
I don't, and well, that's true, and they didn't pivot. Like no credit to them for trying because they didn't get it done. Yeah. You have to pivot after he says no, but that I still think that haunts the organization 6 years later.
That's a great pull, Mando. We started this conversation talking about Knoblauch and his lack of adjustments, and we realized it was just the GM and the lack of adjustments.
All of it.
You are so right.
Well, it always comes back to the GM there and the coach. This is McDavid's sixth coach now in 12 years. That's ridiculous.
Ryan Nugent Hopkins. He's hit double digits, man. Like
he's at 10. He's at 10 and 15.
Insane.
No, that's gotta be a record. It's gotta be a record.
He's a soldier for staying there the whole time.
That is loyalty.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done beating the dead horse.
We're over that. I guess we're moving on. We all agree that it's Bruce Cassidy or bust there, and it doesn't really matter because Stan Bowman is still the GM. I look
forward to the Lavio Rand Oilers, man. Can't wait for that.
You know what? Just go pay whatever you need. Go trade for Quenneville. Just get Stan Bowman and Quenneville back in the horse. So there you go.
Should be the coach.
Yeah, just let McDavid run let McDavid run the organization. Tell him if you sign long term, you own the team now. You own the team. Okay. Well, let's move on to another situation that is not looking that great right now, and that would be the Toronto Blue Jays and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He continues to struggle in massive situations. I will say last night, bottom of the 8th inning, I think it was 2 men on, and it's a 1-1 game, and it's a 1-0 game, I believe, for Tampa Bay at that point in time. And he's got the biggest moment to come up in a spot all season long, and he at least walked. I guess that's a positive, right? Like, he didn't just strike out or didn't hit into a double play. He just walked. That's better than doing nothing. You can't
walk it out of the park, right? If only we could.
That's a really expensive walk, by the way.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe this. This is not good, guys. This is really not good. And a lot of people are still on October. And yes, he had a fantastic October. One of the best Octobers of all time, maybe. But we're on to a new season, and this is year 1 of a $500 million extension. It is time to perform. You can't just say, oh yeah, he had that one October. You guys, we're going to live on that October forever. 14 years to just average. But that October, man, what a player. We can't just have that. So how do you fix him? What do you do? Brandon, I'll go to you.
Well, I mean, I think with Vlad, you got to give him more time. He's a notoriously slow starter at this point, but it's not out of the question, like you said, that this is just kind of what the team as a whole might be. I mean, they're at this point, virtually 10 games back of the division lead. They're still there in the wild card race, and at this point, that's kind of your goal. But yeah, I mean, we're starting to see that the team that excelled so much in October, it's kind of just middling at this point. In May. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch, but I don't know. I still hold out hope for Vlad specifically. You guys know that I've been skeptical about different parts of this team coming together into this season anyway, and it's kind of played out almost exactly as I expected, outside of some of the injuries and stuff, which you can't prepare for.
I bet you feel happy right now.
No, I mean, I always want to see them.
I hate it, man. Damn it.
I always want to see them do well, and I wanted them to continue the year. But it was just the way that the offseason went that gave me so much pause about what this season might look like. And yeah, unfortunately, I have hit on a few things, but like I said, most of it has been
Yeah.
injuries that has derailed a lot of their season. So again, they're getting a few guys back. Maybe that will help insulate Vladdy a little bit in the batting order. So hopefully he can get going, and maybe that will kind of propel them. Maybe the Varsho moment becomes a huge turning point in the season. We saw last year with the Bo Bichette home run against the Yankees. Maybe a similar thing against a division opponent will kind of get these guys started. But that starts tomorrow in Detroit. So
I would advise all Blue Jays fans to pull up the batting order, the stats on the season. Just pluck 5 of Kazuma Okamoto's homers, pretend it's in Vladdy's column, and call it a day. Just that's the mindset I'd put myself in. No, listen, I'll return to the well on some of the things that I talked about in the before the season and early in the season as well, for like where my optimism would lie, and how I think anyone who's kind of arguing for optimism. And that's with David Popkins. I'm going to read an excerpt here. This is from a Mitch Bannon piece. I was looking for this while we were having this conversation. Okay. And it's Dave Popkins' kind of view on the good and the bad. Like, what do things look like when Vladdy's, he's hot, and what do they look like when he's bad? So David Popkins says, currently, Guerrero's confidence and ball crushing ability are linked. When the hits fall, Guerrero plays loose. When he's loose, his mechanics reach a quote-unquote flow state. He's searching for it. He's maybe a swing away from a course correction. I think that's Bannon's part there. This is also another quote from Popkins. When there's a narrative and things start to roll, he feels it, Popkins said. Then all of a sudden he's trying to feel his body, those positions, and get to that power, so things become a little more unnatural. My boy Dave Popkins, he's in the lab. He's there with the, what's that pitching machine called? Remember when we were talking about that pitching machine emulating Trey Savage's
the Traject machine?
Thank you,
become
Brando.
a huge thing now in the
Popkins,
league,
they have the Traject. I'm sure he's got the kinesi. I should know this as a kinesiology major. The term, the kinematics. Okay, like where you're looking at the data of, okay, where is his shoulder? Where is this? Where is that? I really believe Dave Popkins when he says things look different in Vladdy's swing when he is not mentally in the flow state, right? Like there is a physical result to Vladdy's mental game being off. So I think it's less about on the physical side of things. It's about getting Vladdy in the right headspace. How you do that, I don't know. It just kind of switched last year, right? Like, sorry, great solution, right? I don't know. I think Popkins has more than that. But I don't think any of us thought that Vladdy was going to have the October he did last year, right? There was tons and tons of pressure on him.
Yeah,
and I think it's really up to him. Yeah, like it's up to him to find that headspace. And the great thing is we've seen him do it before in times where we least expected it, hence last year. And I will say, as someone who is a hockey guy first, and it sort of feels like I'm hibernating in Jays land, right? I think there's a lot of people that can sympathize with that. Man, I kind of expected this narrative to grow from people like me, like I said, hibernating hockey fans with their pessimism invading Jays land and, being like, Vladdy sucks this and that, honestly. But this is like widespread. This is across the whole fan base at this point. So, I think it is a real concern for real reasons. But this is one where I will have the blind faith, where I'm just going to lean on the David Popkins effect once more. It's working for Okamoto. I'm gonna just hold faith that it works out for Vladdy.
It's a good guy to trust, man. I don't think there's anything wrong with that right now. The only solace I'm taking on Vladdy and as a result the team is that I looked at the standings last year at this time, and the Jays had an almost identical record. I know things have been different and they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but we're pushing past the injuries being a narrative. And the AL, as outside of the Yankees and the Rays, and of course the AL East is always going to be a dominant division. That's never going to change. And I think Keegan Matheson did touch on this, though, the fact that you have to find a way to win the division. And I don't know how that's going to be possible right now, because you just don't know with the AL how things can play out and the juggernauts you might be up against. But all of that to say, when it comes to Vladdy, I'm drawing a blank, and maybe this is, again, Cristian, I feel the same as you. I'm very hockey-minded first. I've been following the playoffs a lot. So I'm not as dialed in, but I'm also curious, has there been a time where Vladdy has been hot, where the rest of the team has been cold? Because if there is, then I'm interested to hear about it more, because I always find that Vladdy sort of is he contributes consistently when the team is hot. I don't know if I've ever seen him lead the group offensively. And I could be very much just ignorance is bliss here, but I wonder if that's just, it's not right now something we've seen from him, and he needs to see some of the other contact rates increase. Like you said, Brandon, maybe it is Dalton Varsho, a walk-off grand slam changes the perspective, and maybe that shifts the narrative to maybe a couple of hits here, a couple of hits there, and then Vladdy's confidence gets going. I wonder if it's just the slump as a team. It's hard for him to kind of be the first one out of it. It's not an excuse, because when you get paid 500 schmil, like, you need to be the first guy out there crushing balls. But I wonder if that's just not in his nature, and it's just something I'm wondering I'm not putting on him.
It's a really good thought, man. Because honestly, I think that goes to like what we're talking about with the September to October switch. Like, a lot of us had faith in like the rest of the team where he can get in a headspace where like I'm just a cog in the wheel, right? And to your point, like that's a great observation that I also can't recall. Like, yeah, where he is like the team is in a slump and it's, hey guys, follow me. It's been him following some other guys.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like it feels like maybe like he's someone who, you know, he needs like a road trip right now, right? Like he needs like I'm out of Toronto, because it kind of does feel like in the dome he comes to the plate and it gets a little murmury in the crowd. Everyone's talking about, hey, did you know that Vladdy sucks this much lately, right? Like everyone's having that conversation, right? So I almost feel like he needs to, you know, just step into, I don't know, Camden Yards or wherever, and that's where he's gonna, you know, maybe start picking it up.
That's funny. Okay, so let's play a game. He has 2 home runs at this point this season. How many home runs does he end the season with?
Well, how many did he have last year? Because he started like it was.
This was the same
June.
conversation.
He had 4, I think, going into June.
slow.
So it was like similar. He finished with like 23 or something, 26. I can't remember the exact number.
He had 23 last year.
Yeah.
The year before was 30. The year before that was 26. The year before that was 32, and the year before that was 48.
And I think to Alex, to your point, Alex, quickly, the 48, that I think that was 2021, maybe that season.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe they were a wild card team. And I think that was in that stretch where they were losing all those wild card series every year. But he was, I think, carrying them to that point. Even that, like that was in kind of the inception of these younger guys. They were coming up. They were starting to have really good years. But yeah, and like Vladdy was seen as like the guy to carry them over the next decade. And then they started putting together these really good teams the last couple of years. And everyone was like, oh, Vladdy can just be like the main guy on a really good team. So it is a good question to wonder, like, can he be a guy who can carry a squad as opposed to just that guy who helps you out when you're already good? But to the original question, I mean, I'll say I'll be optimistic and say he'll get to 25. I think that's a number that if you get him around there, you're happy enough with it. Below that, again, I think you'd be really raising the alarm bells in terms of what he looks like for the rest of his career.
I was on record saying that but this is preseason, but I was on one of the TSN programs and I was like, yeah, I think he can hit 40 this year. So I'm struggling to come up with a narrative that suggests otherwise.
I know into the season, right? He felt like he was going to have 200 hits and 40 home runs, 120
Especially
RBI.
The way, like he was also terrific in the World Baseball Classic. Like he was
a good
phenomenal.
Well, and that was a huge thing where everyone was like, this is great for his mindset to, you know, not return to regular season baseball where it's so even keel to start the season. We're going to do it's early talk for 2 months. He's right back in the thick of a really competitive space. This is going to be great. And it was great there. Right? Like
so,
it just disappeared.
But that's a good point that you bring up because Cal Raleigh's struggling, Shohei Ohtani's struggling, and these 100%. Guys were pretty important with the World Baseball Classic. Like, I don't know if it's direct correlation, but do you wonder if maybe like the high of playing for your country and then coming back and playing an 162 regular game season, is there a drop off at some point? Like, I don't know if that's an excuse or if it's just like a fact, but I've heard that being brought up by prominent baseball guys, like as maybe it's a small thing. I don't know.
Because Colorado just went on the IL. Like he's on the 10-day IL. They just put him on that like an hour ago. Like even the pitchers, Skubal, out for 3 months. I know that's not related to. But but I understand the World Baseball Classic.
I did see
he ramped up. You ramped up to a higher expectation than it is at that time of year, right? for every single one of those players.
I'm going to try and find it quickly here, but there's I saw a great graphic of who the worst hitters have been in MLB over, I think it was the past 2 weeks. And
Yeah, Vladdy was at the top, by WAR.
But Vladdy was at the top, but like there was names that you would not consider in the rest of the top 20. Like I can't remember. I'm trying to remember. Like obviously Cal Raleigh was there. I don't remember if
Seager's probably there.
I did see the same one. I can't remember.
There was names that would make you say, okay, like this is to an extent normal, right? The problem is we're also coming off of just the lack of power in general on the season, right? So you combo the two and it feels like this is a season long problem, right?
Well, like I think it's like a MLB wide problem in the sense of like this has been going on for a couple of years now where the pitchers are just dominating the hitters and the league wide OPS is just scraping above 700 right now. Like it's nothing.
I also think this is an early season thing because I feel like people always point to like the weather as well having an effect. Like once the heat comes, that you just have like balls soaring through the air. Baseball's a finicky sport, fellas. Like,
so what do you?
Every
what's
year
your prediction?
Something coming that. My prediction is 19 home runs to honor Jose Bautista.
Okay. Fair enough.
No, I'm just.
That's not
just where I'm feeling.
Not really that crazy to say.
Listen, if he's a 290 to 300, like 310 hitter or whatever, like I think you convince yourself that it's still a fine season with a terrible start. So
last year I thought he was like in the 300s. He wasn't 300 last year. It was 292. The year before that, 2024, he was 323. He had a 5.5 WAR, and he hit 30. He had 103 ribbies, and like I don't know. Is he trying to steal bags more? Like because he's already at 3 bags. He's already.
No, I think I can't remember who exactly was saying this, but I think this is true. Like, I think he has been trying to walk a lot more. I don't know if that's this season or does that go to last season, but like you can see like he's either being more selective about the pitches he's trying to hit or he's just, like trying to get on base more. Maybe to your point, Justin, like, maybe he likes to be on base trying to steal bags. Maybe if he can't have the power, he's going to try to manufacture runs other ways, but it certainly feels like he's had a different approach over the last little bit.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like the power's gone? I don't feel like the power is gone. I just feel like he's not hitting on his swings. His timing's off completely. Like, do you guys, Brand, do you actually think the power is just gone?
I think the power's gone in his approach. That's what I'll say. It's like, I don't think
that's fixable. That's a fixable thing. That's not an injury. This is like the Matthews conversation, right?
You don't think the power is actually gone?
The adjustment has to be. No, I mean, if he made the adjustment and only went up there to try to hit home runs, I think that would be, he'd have better success at that. But I don't know that would make him a better hitter. I don't know if that's what's best for the Toronto Blue Jays.
I'm sure Vladdy's been to drive line. Does he have to go somewhere else? We got to get this guy the torpedo bat.
The power's there. And like,
so
I'm sure he's like, we've seen the concept. You don't hit 40, almost 50 home runs in an MLB season and then, have it disappear. Like it's still there somewhere, but it's like, like maybe it's just a change in approach that he needs or an adjustment that's on Popkins and the team. But you see what Popkins is doing. Cristian brought Bogamoto. Like he looks unbelievable with some of these small adjustments that I assume Popkins has had an element of help with. So like, where's the adjustments for Vladdy and how is that going to translate at some point? But that's okay.
The last thing I'll say on it is, and I think this is a big point, we shit on Aaron Judge all the time. Like we say he can't get it done.
Oh, I see.
And we say that the pitching he gets treated differently with pitching, but he still delivers. We're now saying that Vladdy's getting pitched differently, and that's why he's not producing the same way. I don't want to hear it because if Aaron Judge gets pitched differently, if Shohei Ohtani gets pitched differently, but they're still able to produce at the level that they are. And I'm not saying Vladdy has to produce at their level, but you damn well should be producing at a much higher clip than you are right now. You can't just say pitching.
That Judge conversation has been more contained to the playoffs, though, right? Like, and guess what? Last year was the first time where we said, "Holy crap, Aaron Judge delivered," and they lost. Right? He was fantastic against the Jays, right?
Yeah.
And so, but like to your point though, like that can't be an excuse. Like I would not hear that out as well. Pitchers pitch really well to Vladdy, therefore he gets an excuse. Like no, that's not.
He should not get an excuse.
The other thing is, like,
Oh.
once again, I really do feel like this storyline could flush away. Like, this obviously requires them
Yeah.
to get to the playoffs. But if he, once again, is some different guy there, like, we don't talk much about the regular season that he had last year. We can't
No.
remember how many home runs he had off the top of his head. We talk about October. So, you know, that's another silver lining he
It's
has.
so hard to get to the playoffs
You have
in
to get
MLB.
there. You have to.
It's so much harder in MLB compared to every other sport, especially the NBA compared to that. You want to look at that. 2/3 of the friggin' league make it in the NBA.
Yep.
Compared to what? I think 12 teams in the MLB make out of the 30.
Yeah.
Like, and that was up. They added 2 more teams. Before it was only 10. So
at one point, wasn't it like 8?
Brother.
Yeah, no, it's true.
yeah,
No, but
like,
That's how you get the
but-
best teams.
Yeah, I do think it makes sense though, Cristian. I like that point. Like, no one remembers. We just talked about it. We don't remember much about the regular season. It's still early. I referenced earlier they have almost identical records to last year. That doesn't just mean, hey, put the panic meter away. Like, we'll be fine. They still have to perform, but there's some sort of solace in the fact that we've seen this narrative before, and they still have a ton of games against the AL East. They've played like 7 games against the AL East, or like 10 maybe. They played 5 or 6 against Tampa, and then the 1 series against Boston. They haven't even played the Yankees yet. So it's like you have a chance to sort of change things if you just dial in against your own division.
Yeah, I mean, they're
It's a long
9.5
summer,
games
boys. We need
back.
these guys to figure it out, you know? So I'm
I
willing
mean, like, and the thing is, they also have a bunch of injuries, like we said, that they're supposed to be getting back. All the Barger one sucks, comes back for 1 game, and then goes on for elbow inflammation, I think is what it was called or labeled as. But anyway, the Jays are back in action, I think this weekend. Yeah, this weekend, definitely for sure. Who do they play? They go to Detroit, right? Yeah, they're going to Detroit. They're going on the road. Like you said, hopefully it sparks something after that heroic grand slam walk-off victory for the Blue Jays from Dalton Varsho last
Can
night.
Varsho pull the
Tampa Bay
Steve
Rays.
Pierce 2 in 1 week? Can he do
That'd be
it?
awesome.
That'd be amazing.
Oh, man,
Last thing before we wrap up this edition of the Second Look Sports podcast, LeBron James got swept by the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't think anyone else was expecting anything different, especially considering you don't have Luka Doncic on the court. But I will say the Lakers did not just push over. I thought they competed hard. Obviously, a little bit of this series was when I was in the UK, so it was more so just watching highlights. Obviously, did not get the game flow. But it didn't seem like they just like walked over and were just simply just like whatever. But the biggest question now becomes, hey, does LeBron James retire after this season? Yes or no? So let's just discuss. What do you guys think? How are you guys feeling? Personally, I'll tell you right now, I don't think there's any way in hell that this guy is retiring after that. I think he wants the full retirement tour, and he will get everything out of that retirement announcement. It is going to be a marketing campaign because it is LeBron James. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But tell me how you guys feel.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. I don't even know if like putting it like that makes it seem like it's a bad thing for LeBron to be that way, but he's LeBron. He's kind of deserved to do it if he wants to that way. In some ways, it feels like we'd give him even more credit for just like going quietly into the night, but none of us expect that. I almost feel like I'm basing a lot of my opinion here off of I saw the quote he had. I think it was about Dylan Brooks. And this is obviously from earlier, but just talking about like that, like talking about how he should return for another season, whatever. He's another veteran. And I'm just like, he wouldn't be talking like this if he even had an inkling. Like, I don't think he's entered that headspace. I know he had, like, he's alluded to it in like podcasts, right? With like Steve Nash, the one that they have. And like, he does kind of like joke about it in press conferences, but like I said, I think I'd almost give him credit if he just went quietly in the night. Of course. And I don't think that's going to be the case.
Like,
no.
He was one of the best players in the court for that series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like, and it's just impressive.
Yeah, he's still incredible.
Yeah, he's still incredible.
Even if he wasn't, though, like, I feel like we give a lot of credit to we start roasting players that like have to be
Stay
dragged off
too
the ice,
long?
off the court. Yeah, stay
Mhm.
too long. But like
Mhm.
realistically, if you're playing a sport and you love it, why would you stop unless you physically can't do it anymore? Like look at a lot of
Yeah.
players that have been horrible to end. There's like Ovechkin. He's not horrible,
Yeah.
but Ovechkin might as well just be glued to one point in the ice because that's where he's going to be playing his best hockey,
Yeah.
and he's still playing, or at least as of right now.
Yeah.
So I think
For
even if
sure.
LeBron was bad, even if he didn't retire next year, he has another season. Like I think he's going to play until he just physically can't perform out there anymore. And the fact that he still has juice, like just that's already another reason, along
Yeah.
with everything you alluded to, Christian. Now I think
That would be
Brandon, I
such
want
a
to.
nice change, though. Like the idea
Oh
that,
yeah,
like it's like in terms of like if he were to be a guy who really just went until there was nothing left. Like we don't expect that from Crosby, for example.
right.
Right? Like he's a guy who's said publicly like he has a standard. If he's not at the standard, it's curtains on the career, right? And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
standard's very high. LeBron obviously feels like he's cut from the exact same cloth.
for sure.
It would be so cool to see him on it, like him coming off the bench, for example.
Yeah.
I once again, hockey, like Corey Perry, for example, revolutionized his game.
Yeah.
He's like what 41, and we don't even like talk about the potential he could retire this. He totally
good
could,
point.
but we're just like that guy had juice. He's in the
Yeah.
bottom of the lineup, like he can do it. So you're right, like LeBron to see that side, I'm signing up for that. I hope that's
Yeah.
the case.
At 41, he averaged 21, 6, and 7 still.
Yeah.
So
Like,
that's really
yeah,
good.
it's
He's still a very
ridiculous.
good player. Yeah, and I
Any-
think he's going to end up
Like any
retiring
player would
after
take that,
next
right?
season. Yeah.
Like any,
Yeah, I
think
any
one more
player in the
season?
prime of their
You think
career
for
would
sure.
say,
One
Yeah,
more
yeah,
year,
like,
huh?
For sure.
like that's a really
No.
good year.
I think if LeBron didn't have like outside interests, like whether
Yeah.
that's in ownership
Golf.
or in entertainment, golf, obviously now, I think he would be the guy to like play until he's like 50, like be on the bench, play 10 minutes a game at 48 or something. Like he totally, I think, has that drive and that passion. And not that other stars haven't had that, but he seems to be the one guy that it's like outside of like Tom Brady, who obviously went to what, Justin, 45, I think he was when he retired
45 or
for the second time, I
somewhere.
guess. So like he's proven that guys can do it. And I think LeBron could be that next guy if he wants to. But I think part of his brand and everything is that he will eventually have to move on. And I think Alex made the point that he's going to do it in a way that I think suits his best interests. So that's going to include a retirement tour. It's going to include big events and everything that's going to honor him and be part of his story going forward. So I think with LeBron, it's just a matter of time. I've thought that next year would be that retirement tour year, but I think we got to kind of see what's going to happen with his contract. He's going to be a free agent. I know that's not new to LeBron, but there are a lot of questions about whether he's going to be back in LA. So I mean, I kind of want to see what that looks like, and then kind of make my call at that point, whether he's going to announce a retirement tour before the season or if he's going to wait and kind of play it by ear. So it's going to be interesting. He's going to have, the more he goes, the more eyes and interest is going to be around that. So, I mean, maybe they're going to just let it play out as long as they can.
Maybe the craziest stat, but I don't know. This is kind of interesting to me. This is the longest LeBron's ever been in one place.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that's
true.
interesting.
Yeah, well, it's been. I think it's been for a couple years now, right? Like,
like
he overtook his time in Miami, and even if you do like Cleveland, adding up both tenures, right?
Yeah.
So
That's pretty
you're right. Like
fascinating.
when we look back on him, none of us are gonna say that
He's-
bubble Lakers.
no.
That's LeBron. That's him to a T, right?
What
So-
would you? Okay, so if LeBron retires, he has to pick
Yeah.
one jersey. Is it obvious which one it is? Like I think
yes,
I have
it's
one
very
that you probably
obvious.
would
It
pick.
is super obvious which
It's
one it
Cleveland.
is.
Definitely.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is Cleveland.
Okay,
He owes
but
it
it's
in Cleveland.
listen. The point is like he
But
is
they
all
don't do
over the
jerseys
place.
there. They don't do jerseys in the NBA, which is extremely weird. They just put them in.
Yeah, yeah.
No, the
They
2016,
don't do
I think
They
even
just
if
put them- what is
LeBron,
that supposed to mean?
they just do like the bust with
usually,
the
like,
head. So there's no like,
Mm.
usually
Okay,
they have like a
okay.
hat. I think MLB does.
In the hall, you're saying.
Yeah,
I
they
thought
have
like in the rafters. I'm like, what are they?
No,
Not
no,
like,
sorry,
yeah,
like-
like they're putting up
in the,
what
in
to
the
the
hall, in
rafters?
hall,
Okay.
in the
Yes,
hall.
thank you. Okay, sorry.
Okay, but yeah, so like
Yeah.
you go ahead, Brandon.
Still
'cause you
fun
were-
doing-
I was
you
just
were
gonna say
saying
the
something.
2016 title cemented that. Even no matter
Yes.
what he did in LA, he could win
Yeah.
3 more
Yes.
titles. It doesn't. I think
He
Mhm.
won
that
his first hometown.
the way
yeah.
his career went up until that point, like it was no doubt that like that was going to
That's
be
his.
his,
That's his peak,
story.
man. That's his peak.
It is saying
block,
something that for
it's
me
a-
at least, like
That you know
not
that,
basketball, like not a basketball person, but like it is that, like that's the one that comes to mind first. And the number two is an off court, like it's the decision before anything else. If I'm ranking LeBron moments, it's winning in 2016 over that Golden State team, and then the decision before anything else. I don't know if I'm right to say that, but that's what I think of.
Well, like not only that, like for how good of a player he is, and like he's the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. The number one play that comes to mind is his block. It's not a shot that he took to win. Like he had some terrific game winners for sure against, I think it was Pistons in 07, and you think he won that game, scored or Magic as well.
That Magic one was huge, but that was like a conference finals game, I think.
Yeah, to go to the NBA finals. I think that was 2007. I think that's the one I'm thinking about.
It just shows you the bar.
And then
conference finals.
But like it's the NBA finals, game 7, and it's a block. It's not a shot, it's a block. And it just goes to show like he's literally done everything. He's one of the best. He's
it's a good
top
point.
2. He's top 2.
Well, he can never beat the he was a part of an amazing, maybe one of the best buzzer beaters of all time, but the Ray Allen shot in the corner to basically win them a title. Like nothing he could ever do would be better than like getting the Chris Bosh grabs the rebound, throws it out, literally like 0.2 on the
that shot too.
Was insane.
He takes the initial
I can't
shot
believe
and they miss it. Chris Bosh gets the rebound, kicks it out to Ray Allen, and everyone knows the rest.
Yeah, the rest is history.
I can't believe Justin said, he's guaranteed like top 2. Now we have to have LeBron. No, we're not going to have a LeBron.
I thought he was top 9, guys.
When he retires.
I thought he was ranked 9.
Okay, so did you guys see that? I saw that. I made sure I saw that when I came back.
It's whatever, man. That's whatever.
But the craziest part is, did you guys see the ratings?
I'm sure
the ratings?
Sure, man.
Yeah,
through the roof, or were they bad?
That was
were they top 2 the ratings? Top 2 all time?
That was the best show they've had
top 1.
in, like
no question,
forever.
So was that show the Michael Jordan or the LeBron James of shows,
television?
Huh?
Well, listen, we all know who the GOAT is. We all know who the GOAT is. It's not a debate, guys. It's not a debate. One has 4, one has 6, 1-6-0. Okay, that does it for this episode of Second Look Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a long one, but we did unpack a lot in terms of Craig Berube, the Kris Knoblauch firing, and Sam Bowman, a joke still. The Toronto Blue Jays, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Can he get his power back? Can he get his mojo back at least? And then LeBron. So anyway, great episode. We'll see you next week in episode 61. We will have the answers to whether or not the Montreal Canadiens or the Buffalo Sabres are going to the conference finals, who the Colorado Avalanche will face. Will the Cleveland Cavaliers and James Harden advance to the conference finals as well and take down the Detroit Pistons? And will we get Wemby versus SGA program television that everyone wants to see? Will we finally get that matchup? We'll all have that for you next week on the show. But for now, peace and have a great weekend.